Right, so this week we'll focus on the Malaysian government budgeting practices. Okay, I think in last week we discussed on budgeting techniques, including um, Islamic perspective, okay, of budgeting. So this week we discuss specifically on the budgeting practices in the Malaysian government. Okay, as a case and as an example, how all these techniques been operationalized, including incorporating, public sector reforms under the name of new public management. Okay, recently can also call as new public financial management. So these topics onward discuss on strategic planning and control in Malaysian government, then annual budgeting process, including funding procedures for government organizations. And we also discuss on MBS, and outcome-based budgeting will be for the next class. Okay. Right, annual budgeting process. Source of the authority, so these are all relevant statutes, including the federal constitution, have the clause directly related to estimate for budgets for revenue and expenditures. Okay, including here Development Funds Act, Financial Procedures Acts. Okay, and annually they will issue by the Parliament. That's why very soon in Malaysian case that the budget will be proposed, okay, by the Prime Minister or by the Minister of Finance. Okay, Zafrul. So at the end they will issue. The Parliament will endorse the budget and issue the Supply Act for each year. Okay, so this is the source of authority. I think very important for you to know exactly provisions under constitutions as well as Financial Procedures Act, including the development funds. Okay, for budget preparation, so annual operating plan, these are for the operating budget, as well as development budgets. Okay, so there are two types of budgets, and the division is under the Malaysian Treasury is Budget Management Division. Okay, that basically become the secretariat, okay, for the whole budget to be compiled and prepared. Okay, because all government agencies are proposing their budgets, will be so the Budget Management Division will become the secretariat. Right. So if you look at the agency level there, the responsibility of the chief accounting officers, controlling officers to submit budget proposal to the Treasury. Then from time to time, the Treasury will also get feedbacks from all stakeholders. Okay. Yesterday I did share a link, okay, provided by the Treasury. So where you can provide your feedbacks directly. Okay, I think now with the social media, the Treasury have that privilege and luxury to get the feedbacks directly from the masses. Okay, so how many of you basically fill up the survey, or they call it? So you can see at least from there you can check the priorities of the government today. Yeah, so how they're going to approach the budget. Right, and then once the budget is approved by the Parliament, then by right, the warrants will be distributed to all government agencies so that they can start to execute their planning early next year. Okay, right from the beginning of next year, ideally. Okay, ideally, but of course there can be challenges for the distribution of the allocations, where there can be a possible delay. Right, components of government budgets. Okay, the estimates for revenue. Okay, so you can see that there are 3 tiers of government. So every government level need to provide their budgets as well as expenditures. There are 2 types: development and operating. Under operating, there are charge and supply. So of course, charge is basically need to be provided based on the constitutions as well as based on the Financial Procedures Act. But the supply, I think these are the one that our main focus for discussion. Okay, the budget for supply. Okay, depending on the priorities of the government of the time. Okay, right. So these are budget cycle. So you can see it starts from the previous year. Okay, now I think what you can have a look here. Let's say on now, I think the budget is for 2001, 2021. Okay, just a quick. I have to. Right. So if you look at this budget cycle, so you look at the top there on the right. It starts from November. Okay. So if you imagine like for next year budget, 2021. So you can see that it take 1 year to prepare the budget. Okay. Almost a year from January and then to
Doctor,
September. Yes.
are you sharing the slide?
Remember on the top, on the right side, and then you can see by month how the budget is being the processed. So basically, November here means if you take 2021 budget, so November here means 2019. Okay, so where they prepare the guidelines for the budget to all controlling officers, right? It means that to all ministries. So with the control officers, then control officers start preparing. So from January, they start to prepare, right? And there is a debate. So if you look at this, by March, the Treasury already received for the next year budget, the proposal. Receive submissions and BRO makes individual study. So BRO here means Budget Review Officer at the Treasury. Okay, so from May, July, and then there is engagement to the stakeholders. And by September, it will be tabled to the parliament. So you can see, because government is very massive, talk about budget 360 billion or 300 billion, and agencies across the country. And there are specific budget requests by, stakeholders. So that's why I think this year is a bit late because of COVID, okay, and so many challenges faced by the government. So now the expectation is the next budget will be tabled this coming Friday. Right, once it is stable, it means that the budget is being proposed to the parliament. So it's up to members of parliament to approve. But generally, it will take 2 months for the debate. So by end of December, okay, so the budget should be approved. Otherwise, if the budget is not approved at the end of the December, then the government is basically no budget. So if they have no budget, means they cannot operate. Okay. So it happened last time in the US where they couldn't approve the budget. The Congress did not approve the budget, and basically the government have to close all the offices, right? So no government services without the budget, because without the budget approved, then they cannot pay all the expenses, okay, for the salary, for the supplies. So that's why it's very critical for the government to approve the budget. And if you look at what happened today, so the engagement with the stakeholders, particularly to the members of parliament, has been it's ongoing. So even if you can observe that the feedbacks now, because of the current scenario, is very different. And even there was a guidance provided by the king, so that the budget should be approved, okay, particularly for the frontliners. With regards to the challenges that are faced by the country, okay, both two. One is definitely the disease itself, the pandemic, and the other is the economic challenges, because they are all related at the end. Okay, but we'll see, because the political risk and instability still can observe until today, or where the discussion is ongoing. But hopefully they can agree, for the benefit of the country. Any comment? Okay. Right. Since I think the example given by in these slides, we are focusing on 2019 budget as an example. Okay. Right. So you can see the example and the framework is given there. The government is committed to continue the national development agenda. Okay, these are some of the items that they have become their focus. So when they are focusing on these critical areas, they become the focus of the budget. Okay, for the unity, for just and sharing society, okay, sustainable development, entrepreneurial development, resilient economy. And so you can see that for the 11 Malaysian plan, for economic growth, prudent spending, and well-being of rakyat. Okay. So you can see that it provides a clear framework for the controlling officers when they propose their budgets. All these become the priorities for their agencies and ministries. Okay, for them to develop the proposed budget. Right. In terms of technical issues, the focus areas include the need of main stakeholders. Okay, the outcome is realistic and the ability to address the need of stakeholders. And the outcome is measurable with the use of appropriate KPIs. Identified outcomes shall be consistent with the national outcome. So you can see that it's basically referring to outcome-based budgeting. Right. So stakeholders, okay, the main stakeholders mentioned. Okay, as I mentioned this class, who should be the main stakeholder?
Customer.
Anyone? Customers, the target customers. Okay, but of course, I mean, you look at the government agencies, how they translate the main customers. Okay, by right that they are target groups. Okay, that they should provide their services, relevant services, quality services. Okay, so if you look at education, it's quite straightforward, but it's not. It's very challenging. Healthcare as well, transportation, okay, and defense. And definitely the big chunk of the budget also are allocated for economic sectors, okay, either through funding for the SMEs, okay, promoting, make Malaysia become an attractive location for investments and others. Issues to give attention, the cross-cutting issues that involve overlapping of programs and shared outcomes between ministries, agencies, to be addressed appropriately via reviews and formative assessment. So you can see that, so these are issues highlighted by the Treasury, that there are possibilities of overlapping activities, okay, or in simple word, we call it redundancies. So it can be problematic, it can be necessary. Okay, necessary means because different agencies have different capacity, and they can serve different groups of target groups. Okay, but at the same time, they can also be redundancies. So once it can be considered as redundancies, then it can be considered as wastage. Okay, it's not an effective use of public funds. So it's been highlighted. So it means that the challenges are there. That government organizations across agencies, they may have overlap activities, okay, that need to be addressed. Right, so I just show you from previous budgets, how much is the budget expenditure in Malaysian ringgit, okay. So you can see that the big circle there is for operating budget. Then you have orange circle on the left side at the top. That is development budget, okay. So generally the total is, if you look at this, from 2017, it was 265. And then there was a growth to 280 as a total. So you can see that development expenditure is quite stagnant, 46 billion, whereas the operating expenditures, there was a growth, increased by almost 15 billion. And here they also provide emoluments, fixed charges and grants, okay, economic sector, social sectors, okay, subsidies, right? Okay, now and then for 2019, right? So if you look at 2019, total budget still increased, including the development expenditure. Right. So that's expectation. I think all this before COVID is quite reasonable to expect high total budgets. So generally, that's why I think you can expect around 300 billion. But we'll see on Friday. So how much will be the budget proposed for the government? So what you can take from here is basically there are two types of budget. Mainly, the big chunk is basically for operating, and as well as at the same time you have development expenditures. Okay, so development expenditure is basically based on Malaysian plan. So what they do is basically they based on the need and the development and the progress of the projects. So they apportion throughout the 5 years. That's why it's development expenditures for the total Malaysian plan can be 200 billion, okay, or maybe more. But then it will be apportioned for every year depending on the progress and the deadlines of the projects. Right, so that's overall funding process as well as the budget for Malaysian government as a whole. Okay, and now we move on to MBS. So still in the for budget preparation, and to a certain extent you can relate this to the reporting of the budget. Okay, I think in terms of techniques for budget preparation, as well as budget system. So we have discussed traditional budgeting, program-based, and then zero-based budgeting. Okay, and then move to modified budgeting system. Okay, these are basically, I think this technique we learned it from Australia. So the Treasury, I think the main reference country for this technique is basically Australian government. Okay, so but there are additional modification. So if you can see the first point there, basically is based on program-based budgeting, and then with improvement. Okay, with improvement. If you look at the last point there, it focuses the relationship between input, output, and impact of the program. Okay, so it's interesting for the government, make it very clear how important it is for the budget system or budgeting techniques, that the improvement of how to link between input, output, and impact of the programs. I think another way is you can see why this became an issue for government agencies and for government. Okay, so I think that's the point that you need to somehow, okay, because this rarely you discuss in this manner for the private sector. Okay, because private sector quickly you can say what is the profit, what is the return. Okay, So actually, if you break that down, what is the profit and what is the return, is basically the same sentence at the bottom there. Okay, focuses relationship between input, output, and impact on the program. So that's basically for private sector. They don't have to say like that. They just say, you know, what is the profit, what is the return. Okay, but for government, since there is no revenue that is dictated by the market, by the market, so this become an issue. Okay, and for each budgeting, how this can be improved, because this related. If you look at this slide, right? So if you look at this, inputs, output, and outcome. So basically, if you look at output over inputs, it relates to efficiency. Okay, efficiency and relationship between output and outcome is related to effectiveness. So these are clearly highlighted under MBS. So under MBS, they bring this efficiency and effectiveness into the discussion by the civil servants. Okay, so in a way that it expands the horizon of their performance. Before, when they say about how well they are financially, perform, they just simply say, okay, we perform well because we spend all the budgets. Okay, whereas in the case of MBS, they should be able to tell, okay, we perform well because we are, some relatively efficient and effective. So big in terms at the conceptual level is a big change. Okay, but how that translates into practice, of course, you can expect certain progress or developments. Okay. Right, objective of the MBS to improve allocation of resources. You can expect from any budget preparation technique or budget techniques. Okay, so always improving the allocation of resources to government agencies is one of the objectives. To improve the effectiveness and efficiency of government programs. Okay, so I think to put into a general discussion, so I think that's always the demand by the stakeholders and by the public generally, or by the taxpayers, that government need to be efficient, government need to be effective, they need to provide good services, they need to provide quality services. So these are embedded in the budgeting systems, okay, where they have to measure their effectiveness and they have to measure their efficiency. So it's in a way, I mean, in terms of, as I said, okay, it's a big change, okay. So to do that, what they do, so one of them is to strengthen mechanism for accountability, okay, of controlling officers, emphasizing on result-based management. So if you look at number 3, now it's quite similar to the private sector, where the CEO is basically, they are accountable for the profits, the profitability or the returns, or the target profitability, target earnings per share, or ROI. Okay, and but in the case of government, so they follow the same what do you call, the same call, that accountability for results. Okay, so but of course, I mean, this is not new. The call has been started in 1980s, 90s, but in terms of implementation, so I think nowadays it's quite advanced in terms of the implementation. Give me 1 minute. Yes, any question?
Sorry, sir, for interrupt. Someone want to enter the class.
Okay. So far, so good. Yes.
Good, sir.
Yes,
Make sense?
sir. Yes, sir. Good, sir.
Okay. Right. Before we move to the details of MBS, okay, you may wonder why you still have to learn all these, the old techniques. I think the idea is you need to see the development, okay, and then what's happening nowadays, okay, because all these are basically complementary. I think the changes is not replacing the old techniques, but they complement. Maybe the issue is, okay, how well the systems have been developed. Okay, that's the issue. I think that's what accounting is the main focus, isn't it? Developing the systems, accounting systems, financial management systems. Okay, so you look at in that perspective. Right, for you to be able to appreciate why the need of MBS, so look at the weaknesses of program-based budgeting. These are practical weaknesses. It's not so much on the weaknesses in terms of the principles or in terms of the concepts, but the practical limitations. Okay, after so many years of program-based budgeting in practice, so these are issues that have been raised. Okay, lack of top and line management participation into budgeting process. Okay, so you know it's mind-boggling actually why top management and line managers, they are not involved in a very critical area of planning, and which is basically budgeting. Right, and then as a result, widespread of incremental budgeting. Budget proposal was mainly prepared by finance and administrative division. Okay, not much inputs from top management and also line managers. Then what can be done by the finance division? They just focus on the previous year's spending. Okay, previous year's spending. So that's the main benchmark. It's reliable. Okay, so if they propose that based on past year's spending, so no much dispute with the BRO. Okay, but the problem is, so they have to continue with the old services. Okay, so that's why previously government has considered very bureaucratic. Okay, and not they're not providing good services. Okay, largely because of this issue. Okay, right. Limited financial autonomy for effective decision making. Okay, because of very high control. I think it's good in this kind of bureaucratic control is good. Okay, when the corruption is very high. Okay, so you give the controlling officers very limited financial autonomy. But the problem is, it's very difficult to respond to the needs of the people. Right, and then there was a practice of gaming by spending organizations. Okay, what happened is the treasury, if there was also a trend where the new proposal by the government agencies, okay, will be cut. The allocation will be cut because planning is very time consuming. But then if you plan and suddenly the treasury cut the budget, so you have to replan. Okay, so all these are basically is like chicken and eggs. So the treasury is cutting the budget. As a result, it created disappointments among the top management. So they shy away from the budgeting process. Okay, program base was not used as a management tool to achieve value for money. And addressing dichotomy or differences between financial management and operational matters. Lack of involvement of management into budgeting process. Okay, that's what happened. Right, and so with that, they introduced the MBS. Okay, one principle is let managers manage principle, in line with the spirit of freedom to manage to line managers. Okay, basically these are referring to, I think, in the case or in the private sector, we call it decentralization or delegation, right? So because what you can do is basically you hire managers who have all the expertise. So let them manage, let them achieve the objective. Okay, so very similar to the private sector. Secondly, focus on result-based performance measurement and accountability. Okay, so just focus on very broad control. Thirdly, contract and accountable management via program agreement. Okay, so they improve the accountability. Okay, we give you more freedom, but you need to be accountable for the results. Okay, but they clearly have like a contract, performance contract. I think previously there was, we call it performance contract. Okay, this usually you will do it with your suppliers. Okay, where there is an agreement. Okay, but then there was this also introduced in government agencies. I think very similar. If you talk about subsidiaries with parent company, okay, with the CEO, so you have the CEO have that performance contracts, or the managers have performance contract. Okay, So similarly, this is applied in government. They call it program agreement. Okay, so the term is program agreement. So you can see that the word program is there. So the word program means is basically coming from program-based budgeting. And fourth, fiscal control via expenditure target. Okay, so you can see that fiscal control is the mechanism introduced by, I think last time I mentioned World Bank, isn't it? Right, so this is also translated in the MBS via, they call it expenditure target. So there is a spending limit given to all controlling officers when they prepare their budget. Right, less manager manage, devolution of authority, say more flexibilities to manage. So they can, what happened is basically when devolution of authority, so from here, the controlling officers, they have the flexibility to decide their own priorities for the organization. I think that's very key. That's very key for top management, that they can decide what are the priorities for their organizations. Okay, how they develop the priorities, definitely. Okay, they need to understand their customers. Okay, all the strategic mechanism you can introduce. Okay, to make sure that okay they achieve their vision, mission. All these are very. I think in a way that time when the MBS was introduced, Malaysian government also, you can see massive changes. All the government agencies, they become corporation-like. They have so many private sectors initiatives that have been introduced in them. Okay, quality. That's why they have ISO. They have clients charter. Okay, they introduce this vision, mission. So all this basically become a package. Okay, for them to become a corporate-like, as if they are very similar to private sector entities. Okay, because private sector entities, they are very good in serving their customers. So by doing this, okay, with the right skills and competencies of the top management, they will be able to serve the public and the target groups better. Okay, at the end, okay, they can achieve this value for money. But with the flexibilities, so they should hold a higher level of accountability. Okay, accountability to match greater budget authority. Yeah, you can see that greater flexibility, shift of accountability from mainly inputs to mainly outputs and outcome. Okay, I think you can also see how you translate this to what happened. Shift from accountability to inputs, from inputs to outputs and outcome. So that's why before MBS, when you ask the controlling officers how well you perform financially, they will say, yes, we perform well because we spend all the budget. So spend all the budget means basically inputs. Okay, you spend all the money. If your government agency is entrusted with 300 million, so you can spend 100%, 300 million. So that is a good performance. Okay, whereas in the demand by MBS, okay, it's no longer sufficient. You have to achieve your output, you have to achieve your outcome. Okay, right, should lead to greater use of output and outcome-based performance indicators. Okay, so that's why more development in terms of accountability as well as supported by the development in performance measurement in the government agencies. Right, a comparison between program-based budgeting and MBS. I think still, if you look at program-based budgeting, all the elements are very relevant. Okay, except the MBS, they have additional elements: expenditure target, program agreement, cycle performance evaluation. Okay, very similar to program-based budgeting, and more generous approach to expenditure control. Okay. So this is different from program-based, because under program-based, they still, in terms of controlling the expenditures, they still follow the line item budgeting. Okay, you can only spend what has been budgeted for what item. Okay, whereas in MBS, there is more flexibility given to the controlling officers. Okay, to transfer the fund. Okay, expenditure target. So these are the budget ceiling. So it's based on the existing programs. You can see that here, a budget ceiling for an ongoing program. Okay, so ongoing program, they have expenditure target based on previous year spending. cannot be exceeded when preparing the budget proposal. So that's the idea of expenditure target. Okay, so what are the items on the expenditure target based on existing policy, and then allocation for one-off, and taking into account 3% increment. I think 3% increment is very closely related to the increment of the salary. And they also given efficiency dividends. Right, and at the end, total allocation based on expenditure targets as well as based on new policies. Okay, so new policies, you can see that new activities within program to be implemented by agencies. For instance, development of new posts, training for new activities, sometimes expansion of the level of activities. Okay, let's say they want to increase their operation. Okay, for the existing program. Okay, maybe new branches. Okay, new locations. So this can be considered. They can receive additional budget. On top of that, they are also under MBS. They are requested to have saving proposal. So saving proposals. This saving proposal, how it works is basically the BRO. Okay, they should propose the savings in their budget proposal. But if the BRO somehow can point it out that saving can be done without them identifying the saving proposal, so that amount of money will be deducted from the allocations. Okay, so that's I think one idea. To make them, to push them so that they spend properly and they propose properly. Right, and so you can see total allocation on top of expenditure targets. Controlling officer can apply for additional allocation for new policies and one-off. Okay, government organizations encouraged to put up saving proposals. These are the last point. In the event saving proposals are made by operating agencies, a certain amount of saving can be retained. However, if saving proposals are made by the Treasury, basically by the BRO, the agency will lose all the savings. Okay, that's on the budget allocation. So with the budget allocation, there is accountability mechanism. So we call it program agreement. Specify the level of achievement for the funds located. Mechanism to match accountability with greater budget accountability, budget authority. So a contract document between controlling officers and the Treasury. Okay, so look at the third point carefully. The program agreement is basically a contract, a performance contract between the controlling officers and the Treasury. Okay, so the issue is it the right platform, or is it the right mechanism to introduce accountability of controlling officers? Okay, so you can ponder about it. The performance agreement concept, okay, so this basically, from between Treasury and the controlling officers, increase accountability for output and outcomes. And it is, as well as at the same time, the controlling officers are encouraged to delegate more authority to the line managers, okay, push down the flexibility to the line managers so that they become more responsive to the needs of the target groups. Right, so these are the items you can read yourself. The example here, okay, the agency is a Ministry of Public Work or Public Work Department. Okay, the program road and bridges, activities, maintenance services. So you can see maintenance services is a big projects normally, okay, given to suppliers. But these are under Public Work Department. You can see in the program agreement, they clearly mention the word customers. Okay, right. So this is consistent with the ISO, with the quality initiative taken by government. But even in the budget preparation, okay, they mention the word customers. Okay, so is clearly institutionalized in the government way of doing things. The policy and then functions, okay, you can have a look. Resources, and then they have output. These are the performance targets. They have output specification. Okay, so these are the categories of KPIs. functions, quantity, quality, timeliness, including unit costs. Okay, unit costs. So this unit cost is based on accrual basis. So total cost based on accrual basis, right? So at this time when they introduced this, the accounting system under government still cash basis, whereas the unit cost required by the MBS is the accrual basis, so total cost. Okay, and the impact indicator. So you can see impact indicator in the case of road maintenance, decline in the rate of complaints by road users, okay, very significant, and decline in rate of road accidents. So there you can see the impact. After all the maintenance being undertaken, so at the end, the expectation is the decline in rate of road accidents. But you can see the impact indicator is very difficult to achieve. Because road accidents, not only so many multiple factors determine the rate of road accidents. Okay, not only the condition of the road, okay, the maintenance of the road. But in any case, okay, the controlling officers are accountable for this impact indicator. Okay, together with the program evaluation. Okay, if they don't achieve, they have to issue exception report. Okay. A cycle or program evaluation to make sure that you understand to make sure that the program are relevant once in 5 years. Hold on. Right, more general approach to expenditure control, more flexibilities, given to the controlling officers, the line managers, including the environment. Okay, but if you look at the environment here, it's allowed across activities and line item within a program. Between programs within a ministry, need approval from the ministry, from the treasury. So I think the idea for us to discuss on the MBS is for you to get used to all this new language with regards to government budget. Okay, transfer environments, okay, programs, how main funding from different programs can be transferred. I think this can be useful when if you look at nowadays, when during the COVID, definitely there are so many budget that have been proposed in 2019 cannot be executed in 2020. Okay, for instance, like tourism. So tourism is basically become zero. So we would expect that there is a lot of budgets did not manage to be spent. So all this budget can be transferred to more critical areas. Okay, maybe I think these are possible ways for the government to find the extra funding for more critical areas. That currently nowadays the most critical area. Can you give more can you give example of critical areas during COVID? Anyone? That need more funding as compared to
hospital.
Okay, hospital, healthcare,
Education.
education. Yeah, education also is very different, isn't it? So now I think the support more on online education. Okay, so maybe more funding for that. Are there one more?
The roads in Sabah.
The road in Sabah. The road in Sabah. Huh? Yeah, of course. And if you look at Sabah, it's very interesting. Why the spread of the virus uncontrollable. So it may, good study need to be undertaken by the government. I mean, it's more than, I mean, so many multiple factors happened. So need to be clearly investigated and as opposed to other states. Right, there was one question by Hidayah. Sir, if the budget did not get approval, right, should there be any amendments to be done by the preparer? Definitely. Okay. So you can see that now, even before the pre-budget, basically. So I think a lot of negotiations between member of parliaments, even there are demands by the member of parliaments that they should be consulted much earlier. Okay, why is there straight away classified as no budget at all for the year? Why is there straight away classified as no budget at all for the year? I'm not sure your second question, but budget must be provided. Otherwise, no government. Okay. Otherwise, no government services. Budget.
Based on the example that you gave earlier, you said that this one country have no budget because it is not being approved.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened? That is in the US. I think 2 years ago. So there was an overhang. So the ruling party did not get the full support from the Congress. So no budget means, of course, the government have to close, but that's why they have to approve quickly. They have to agree. They have to negotiate. Okay, so they need to agree on the common ground for them to approve the budget. Of course, at the end, the budget is approved, but there was a delay. But the delay means, let's say, a month. So during a month, there is no government services. Can you imagine? There is no government services. Because you must remember, government controlling officers, they cannot spend money without authority. They cannot. It's a violation of Financial Procedures Act. They will be financially liable on their as a person. Okay, so they cannot spend. That's why the best is for the controlling officers is basically stop the service if there is no budget. That's why that's, I think, if you look at basically the king, okay, recall all the MPs to be responsible. Maybe, in a way you can interpret it so that they should provide. And I think he made it very clear. The budget should be provided for next year, particularly for the frontliners facing the COVID. Okay, they must. Otherwise, it's very challenging. Okay, it's very challenging. So we'll see. I think, but I think in the case of Malaysia, hopefully it won't happen, right? And I think that all the MPs are very responsible. Okay. Right. Let me continue. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. A more generalized approach to expenditure control. You can read the details, but basically, if you look at these, these are under a Ministry of Health. Okay, very timely. But I think the example given is basically at that time, Ministry of Health was one of the pilot ministry to implement MBS. Okay, there are different programs here under the ministry: administration, general health, medical care, research and development. So under program base is very limited environment. So in the circle, in this colored circle, these are the items that can be transferred if there is over budget or unspent balance in the general object, so it can be transferred within these two items only. Whereas under MBS, they can transfer across all items, within the programs across all items, but between the programs, of course, they just need approval from the Treasury. But if you look at this, this basically under one program, general patient care. Okay, so that's why they can transfer across. But nevertheless, these are the flexibility given by the MBS. But for the civil servants, they want to plan properly. Okay, they try to minimize transfer as minimal as possible, because that will reflect on their competency to plan. But you can see, I think during COVID time, definitely I would say that this is very important so that government can reshuffle, because basically the economic sector, social sectors, there are so many activities basically cannot be executed due to movement restrictions. So these all can be used for securities, for defense, for healthcare and education. Okay, so that flexibility is there, that is provided in the MBS. Even the outcome-based budgeting is basically a continuation of MBS. So this can be done within the executive branch, okay, without them have to go to the Treasury. To go to the Treasury, of course, I mean the approval can be done by the Treasury, but without going to the Parliament for all these changes. Right, overall benefits of MBS: greater involvement of top management due to customer orientation. Then because of expenditure targets, okay, so there is no budget cuts. So they are planning, basically what they plan can be executed if approved. Okay, greater involvement of top management, improved communication, okay, enabling controlling officers to play a more active role in budgeting, right, integrating operational and financial matters. But just for your note, MBS is only focused on operational budget. It's not including development budget. It's only for operational budget. That's why Treasury can have more control on MBS, because operational budget is directly under the Treasury. And that's why if you look at the controlling officers, the contract is between controlling officers and the Treasury. Okay, greater participation of line managers in the budget preparation process, okay, was due to their abilities to prioritize budget allocation to match their managerial and operational needs. Okay, greater involvement of line managers in the budgeting process. Okay, and when they get input from their customers, so you can see that big changes in the MBS. Increase the opportunity for department to use strategic planning as the basis for budget preparation, minimizing gaming and budgetary slacks. Okay, particularly with the expenditure targets. One, they know that okay, for the existing programs, that much money, that much budget will be allocated. So they will improve their activities, okay, so that it can correspond with the customer needs and with the new environment. But they must plan within the target, the ceiling, the expenditure ceiling. Okay. Right. Of course, another is with the benefits, and there's problems. What are the problems not addressed by the MBS? Annuality. Okay, annuality means the budget still need to be provided annually. Shortfall of allocation, not enough allocation. Delay in distributions of allocations. Okay, so it means that the warrants did not reach by right. I think the warrants should be distributed to all responsibility centers, in due time, so that there is no delay in the executions of the plan. Okay, but there is a problem there. Another is lack of integration between development and operating expenditures to form a coherent and comprehensive budgeting system. I think that's why if you look at this, outcome-based budgeting try to address this problem, to integrate operating and development budget. And the principle let's manager manage is not fully supported. I think the last point is basically regarding the controlling officers, because the Treasury encouraged the controlling officers to give more flexibilities to the managers. But at the end, who is accountable to the Parliament is the controlling officers. Okay, so he still hold the ultimate responsibility to answer to the Parliament. Okay, so I mean, definitely give the line managers flexibilities. Have its merits, but these challenges is also recognized. Okay, another is weaknesses of program agreement as accountability mechanism. Lack of support from top management of spending organizations as no effective monitoring system to achieve the performance targets. Okay, because the key elements of the program agreement is the performance targets. And then blame on the Treasury officials' failure to enforce the performance requirements. The budget review officer, the argument is because these KPIs are not audited. Okay, so it's basically self-claim performance. So it's very, there's a certain weight for the reliability, but it's still, I think, the main criteria will be the previous year's spending level. Performance target, not part of performance and promotional assessment of controlling officers. I think there's another catch, because the controlling officers, their promotion is all under Public Service Department and under Prime Minister Department. Okay, whereas performance targets is by the Treasury in the program agreement. So there is mismatch of accountability requirements. Okay. Right, now there's a linkage between MBS and NPM. I think with regards to these weaknesses of program agreement as accountability mechanism, so the next question will be, so what it should be, okay, to make sure that the performance target that is embedded in a performance agreement is given due care by the controlling officers, okay? so that it can push for further development. So what need to be improved, okay, in that sense. So think about it. Right, relationship between MBS and NPM. MBS places special emphasis on spending limit, output-based performance measurement, consistent with the NPM theme. Okay, the focus from change of accountability from process to result-based. Right, improving the accountability. Okay, MBS introduced contract management is also part of NPM. Okay, where NPM team an increase in contracting out of business activities using specific contracts for short term. And performance agreement contains output-based and outcome-based performance measures. Okay, so that's the end of it, I think. So no question, huh? Clear as crystal. Is it?
Yes, sir.
No,
Oh.
sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes or no? Okay, I think with my presentation or with my explanation, okay, think about it. Because sometimes exam question can be very direct, okay, and also indirect questions, okay. I think what is main takeaways from this discussion is basically it's good for you to understand all the elements of MBS, right? And then because okay, let me ask you this question. Okay, generally, can you measure? Can you tell? Did you see my question?
Yes.
Okay, anyone would like to answer? Very general discussion, okay? We're not going to be specific. You can give example as well. Okay, so very quiet, huh? Okay, right. This quiet because of you don't want to share the answer?
Thinking, sir. Thinking.
Oh, okay. Thinking, then you can write or you can just speak. Huh? Maybe 1 or 2 minutes.
In Sabah and Sarawak. So much
Okay.
that they don't have, that we have.
Okay. Good feedback. Right, other?
Team program for the graduate student. I think that's a good program for preparing them in the workplace.
Okay. Right. One more?
So like currently, Bantuan Prihatin also one of a good government program, I think.
Okay. Right. One off, yeah. Can you, Sister Nurul, can you explain what is the services that have been provided based on the program that you mentioned just now?
You mean
And also
Bantuan
Brother
Prihatin?
Imran. Bantuan Prihatin, huh?
Bantuan
Bantuan
Prihatin.
Prihatin. That's the money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, financial assistance.
Financial assistance.
Brother Imran, what is the services?
I think it's more like mentoring, something like that, or
Mentoring.
maybe yeah.
Okay. And do you know which ministry or agency?
I do not know because there is my nephew joined the program, but I do not know what the minister is.
Okay, no problem. Right, yeah, okay, all right. Good feedback. Okay, financial assistance, of course, I mean, definitely it was introduced since the during Datuk Sri Najib time. I think it's not new for other countries giving. I think in a way that we are moving to welfare state, in a way. Okay, it's just that the amount is not as much, but it's still. But for, I mean, definitely for needy groups of people, it's very significant. On top of because generally there are other programs, but financial assistance, I think, is very useful. But just that, okay, yeah, I mean, if you think that way, that's about it, right? But in any case, in the case for our class, okay, in terms of organizational perspective, so it should be measured, effective and efficient. Okay, so if they have the mechanism like what they have in the private sector, okay, this is only for discussion, but to translate that into practice, okay, I think there's an ongoing effort that's being done, and I think the progress is there to a certain extent. Maybe the level of disclosure is still limited, I think, but as far as in terms of, okay, to measure efficiency and effectiveness, okay, as a very broad performance measure, okay, being done within the government, okay, particularly between government agencies and basically between ministers and prime ministers, for instance, as an example. So the attempt, I mean, the initiative was introduced, okay, but is that being continued? So it's another matter. But but in any case, improvement is being made to make sure that ministers as well as controlling officers should be accountable for higher level of accountability. Okay, I think thank you for your feedbacks. I think in terms of my presentation, that's about it in the discussion. So see you next class. If you have any problem with your assignments, let me know. Because some groups, they're not sure of what need to be done. Okay. I even shared some of the feedbacks given by the students. Okay, SLIM program under ministry. All right. Okay, that's very good. SLIM, yeah, SLIM program. Right. Yes.
Regarding the slide and also duration of the video, right?
Yes.
What is the maximum?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this question, I'm not sure, boss. Okay, I mentioned previously, or maybe in different section, maximum is 20 minutes. Maximum is 20 minutes, so 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, but not longer than that. Yeah, it's quite long to listen. You can plan for 15 to 20 minutes. It's quite good. Okay.
And for the slide.
And then there was also, yes. There was also a question on your recommendation or solutions for the problems that you identified. Okay, okay, you can look at what definitely you need to evaluate what has been done so far by the government. This one. Okay, of course you can say that it's sufficient, not sufficient, or what level of improvement are needed. Definitely, I expect improvement. Okay, so some group they mentioned, okay, can we look at other countries? Yes, we can. You can look at other countries. What are the solutions? And you can look at other, can be, some solutions already there, but not being used by the government. It's also possible. And your own insights to make sure that your recommendations can fit into the problems that you identified. I think that's is also I will look at it as well. Okay, it's not just simply okay. Okay, this problem. Okay, this is what is being done by the Malaysian government. The Malaysian government also should consider what is being done by other countries, but without taking into account the context of what happened in Malaysia. So try to recognize what are the problems in Malaysia, so how all the solutions are relevant, become relevant as the solutions for the problems in Malaysia or in the country that you choose. Okay, because some students also questioning, should I only focus on Malaysia? No, you can also take any other country that you are comfortable with, or maybe your home country you can use. Okay, not an issue. All right. Okay, so I think without any other question, I will stop this session. So I end with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.